welcome to the morning show. We're coming to you today on WJOPLP Newburyport at FM 96.3 on Channel 9 and on our YouTube channel at at Newburyport Community Media Hub.org. I'm your host, Mary Jacobsen, and this morning I'm delighted to welcome back to the show, because she's been here before, actor Sheryl Faye, who's known for her portrayals of historical women. This morning she's here to talk about Her Majesty, which presents Queen Elizabeth II, and it will be a fundraiser for Our Neighbor's Table, scheduled for Sunday, August 4th at the Cabot Theater in Beverly at 6 p.m. So first, Sheryl, welcome and thank you very much for coming back to the morning show.
Thank you so much, Mary, for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. We also have two representatives from Our Neighbor's Table. Leanne Cavallaro is here. She's Community Engagement Coordinator. Thanks for coming, Leanne.
Thank you for inviting us.
And Courtney is here. He's the Communication Director for Our Neighbor's Table. So, let's get started with you, Sheryl. I know that you've performed one-woman shows about many historical and very accomplished women, ranging from Amelia Earhart to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, among a number of others. What led you to decide that you wanted to include Queen Elizabeth II among your repertoire?
I was heading up on my 20th anniversary of performing historical one-woman shows and was really searching for someone spectacular and someone who would really symbolize 20 years of performing. And I actually couldn't think of anyone. I love the ladies that I currently portray. I couldn't think of a new woman. Then Queen Elizabeth II had passed away, and much like when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, I started to receive many emails and phone calls from people I knew, from people I didn't know, saying, you should portray Queen Elizabeth II. And it started to become overwhelming that I did kind of start to think, could I? I don't know. How could I portray someone like Queen Elizabeth II? And then when I approached my team, expecting them to say, I don't think so, big shoes to fill, they all said yes. I think that's a great idea. Everyone said yes. And then I really realized that I have been preparing for this role really my whole life. My mother, ever since I was little, taught me about the royal family, Queen Elizabeth II. We always said she was English in another life because she knew everything about England. And it was her dream to go to London, which I made happen on her 60th birthday, and we went several times after. So she loved the Queen, and we did get to see the Queen 3 times. It was a highlight of her life, and so I really think this was always in the making.
Isn't that interesting, Sheryl? That's a great story. And maybe you could put up the poster now for Her Majesty and show how regal Sheryl looks in costume as Queen Elizabeth. And while she puts that up, could you tell us what do you find most challenging about inhabiting her royal presence, and what's really fun for you? I'm assuming maybe the sash, but...
Well, of course, anytime I get to wear a crown, and I wear 2 of them in the show, I love. And sashes and all the costumes have been so much fun, because she did live such a long life.
She did.
Of 96
really did.
years, and so... people are amazed at how many costume changes you will see, thanks to the power of Velcro, throughout the show. So that has been very fun. As far as challenging, I knew that I had to master the accent. When I started to tell audiences I'll be performing Queen Elizabeth II, one of the most popular questions was, are you going to do an English accent? Of course. I mean, in any of my shows, I always feel it's my job as an actor to be as true and as real to the women that I'm portraying as possible, so my audiences really feel that they are seeing the real person. And my audiences have just really embraced the show. I've had so many people from England come to see the show, and they love it. Nothing but accolades, so I'm very grateful. So I take that very seriously about perfecting the accent. So that was the biggest challenge, I would say.
I'll bet, but what about the wave?
Oh yes. I had to learn the Windsor wave. There was.
Oh, is it actually called the Windsor wave?
It is called the Windsor wave.
I did not know that.
Yes. So you will see that throughout the show. Yes, a lot of specifics, and a lot of the props are actual replicas from England as well. So it's a very, very well researched show that I'm grateful. I've a team of really talented people that helped me put it on.
Oh, that's wonderful, Cheryl. Well, I know that it's billed as an immersive and multimedia journey through the life and times of Queen Elizabeth. So tell us about these aspects of the show. What makes it immersive and multimedia, aside from changing the crowns out?
Yes, definitely. A lot of people are surprised if they've never seen one of my shows before. Because I hear this all the time, oh, I thought it was going to be boring. I thought it was just going to be a lecture, a present. It was so much more. Yeah. Because it is a show. It is multimedia, fully immersive. I use costumes, props. There is music that is composed and designed just for my show. Also, a huge screen with a rear projector. We went on 3 different locations to shoot videos. So I will interact with Winston Churchill and Margaret Thatcher, and it really brings it all to life. So you come away learning about the Queen, perhaps in a way some things you didn't know about her. I always go back to the childhood, because I think it's important, and especially someone like her, to see her childhood a little bit, and then it really molds and helps to shape who she becomes.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. That sounds fascinating. Well, how did you all get the idea to do Her Majesty as a fundraiser for Our Neighbor's Table?
Well, again, it's really in tribute to my mother. This whole show is dedicated to the memory of my beautiful mom, who taught me from an early age how important it was to give to others, especially when it came to feeding people. Whether you were a friend or someone she didn't know, she embraced that, and I have memories going with her, dropping off Thanksgiving dinners anonymously to families. She donated food to shelters, to animal shelters, to people, food banks, everything. So she really instilled that in me, how important that was. I've always wanted to continue my mom's legacy. I want everyone to know about her and the beautiful person she was. And I live in Amesbury, and I'm very much associated with Cider Hill Farms, who has donated quite often to Our Neighbor's Table. So that's where I first heard about Our Neighbor's Table. And then throughout the years, I have made donations on a personal level to honor my mom, and even one of my Susan B. Anthony show online, I did it too, and the proceeds went to Our Neighbor's Table. But I really wanted to take it on a bigger level and tell more people about Our Neighbor's Table as well as my mom. And so it seemed like the perfect combination to honor my mom and to give back at the same time.
It's a perfect synergy, Cheryl, because there was something of a monarchist in your mom, but she was also clearly a very, very altruistic person with a real sense of compassion, kindness, and community responsibility. So it seems like the perfect blend of ways to represent your mom. Thank you.
Well, and Cheryl, didn't you mention too that I remember you mentioned to me that the Queen was very philanthropic, right? There was a tie there.
Oh yes. The Queen herself donated to over 600 charities throughout her lifetime. So it's really a perfect blend, because the Queen and my mom and myself.
The Queen and your mom shared some qualities.
They certainly did. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about who the money will go to then, Our Neighbor's Table. Could you please fill us in a bit on the history of Our Neighbor's Table, its mission, and its values?
Sure. Well, we started in 1992 in Amesbury. A small group of people saw a need. They were working at the Congregational Church, not working, but members of the Congregational Church in Amesbury next to the library. And they saw more of their parishioners needing food and said, let's set up a weekly meal every Wednesday. The idea was not just to serve a meal, but to have companionships, and that's as much of a value for the folks that come to sit and have a meal with others, whether it's someone who might be older or disabled, or just somebody who needs to, there's nobody checks anything at the door. You can, everybody is welcome to come, and it really was a sense of community, and that sort of, they were working out of the basement of a church, like so many food pantries do. They are just living on whatever resources they can pull together and volunteers. But that started to grow, and the need continued to grow. And so over time, I think it's safe to say when Lindsay Haight, our executive director, joined about 14 years ago, she is I always say, has the heart of a social worker and the mind of a CEO. And
good combination.
Yeah, and so
there's power in that.
So here we are today, 32 years later, and we're serving 10 communities, over 1 million meals a year.
Wow, impressive.
The meal still happens. It was there last night. We do about 280 to 300 meals every week at the community meal. Many of them are takeout. COVID sort of threw everything up, but even during COVID, it was, the need is still there. How do we meet the need? And so we need to shift our programs, but ultimately the need continues to grow, and so we continue to grow. But we have an army of 500 volunteers, active volunteers. Our mission is to build a community that supports food security through kindness and dignity, and the kindness and dignity part for us is really an important piece of it, and really the guests, the folks that come to us, and we call them guests because that's what they are. They tell us what they need, and we try to respond. And that is how we continue to operate today.
Well, do you find that a lot of people either don't know about or are surprised to find out about the problems with food insecurity in a location like the North Shore?
Well, I mean, I went to Amesbury High School. I grew up in Southampton, but I went to Amesbury High School. I worked at the Daily News for 7 years. I mean, I feel like I know this community better than most. When I saw the job come up on Indeed one day, I thought, I know what Our Neighbor's Table is, but I don't really know the scale of what they do and what they do. And didn't understand the need that they were trying to meet, because it is kind of hidden. It is something that's private for folks, but I quickly learned there's a lot. I mean, here in Newburyport, we estimate about 1,480 people are food insecure, so almost 1 in 10. Amesbury, there's 1,800. Now, these folks aren't going without because they have support services, whether it's us, whether it's a senior center. But some are, and some go with less. We have statistics that say the folks that just signed, the people who signed up in June, more than half said they went without food at some point in the last 3 months. And that's not just elderly folks. It is some elderly folks who can't get out, but it's some disabled folks. It's some people who are, but it's also folks who recently had a hospital stay and just can't make ends meet. It really is, when you see who comes through our market, it's a wide range of people, and maybe people you wouldn't expect, and not everybody drives a car that looks like it's in bad shape. It's folks with all kinds of different situations.
I mean, the reality is we're, most of us, only a few misfortunes away from being in a situation where the kind of services that you provide would be absolutely critical.
Well, and so often it's folks like Sheryl who have a connection and feel a connection to our cause that want to help us. And I think that's the other thing we don't notice, is that there are a lot of people who feel touched by this and want to support us, and that's what's allowed us to grow.
Well, you talked about the community meals, which I think sound wonderful, and your guests. But I know you also have markets as well, I think in several locations. Could you tell us about the market?
Sure. So we just opened one in Salisbury. We actually are renovating our one in Amesbury. Excuse me. But the idea behind our markets is it's a free grocery store. We just check residency. If you live in this area, in one of our 10 communities, you can come in and shop for free. We ration very little. We believe in fresh food, not just non-perishables. So there's always vegetables. We have minimum standards of vegetables, milk, eggs, meats. And folks can come in and shop for what they need, and take as much as they need. And interestingly, I think a lot of places ration. We found that when we stopped rationing, people took less. Part of building food security is consistent, reliable access. If you know it's going to be there next week, you don't have to take as much as you need this week.
Absolutely.
And that's the trust we've built
Yeah.
with folks. And again, it's not just people in poverty. It's, this cost of living is really high right now. And if you have to go out and suddenly get an apartment for $2,000 a month,
Yeah.
your food budget may be pretty strained if you have 3 or 4 kids. If you have kids who are relying on free breakfast and lunch in the school year, you go without that in the summer. And those are 10 meals a week for every single kid.
Yes, that's
So we
right.
have a school lunch program
Yep.
within our market that helps those folks. But the idea is that an open market with dignity, that there's no privacy, there's no judgment, and people are smiling when they come in. The kids are in there, and I think people feel very welcome there. And so the hope is, excuse me, by October, we'll have 2 markets open
Great.
to meet the need, Amesbury and Salisbury.
It's such a great idea. It's like a cross between a community center and a grocery store. Which is what Market Basket is anyway, It sounds like you make that available to everybody who needs it, which is just wonderful. And I understand why people are drawn to want to make sure that you succeed in this goal.
Well, you're really starting to see others catch on to this. I mean, I think it's, Lindsley is an innovator, and she really, Amesbury was the first one of its kind on the East Coast, and now we're seeing, I saw Salem Pantry has something similar now. There's one in Franklin, all trying to do this same kind of model. Because it works. More people ask for help when they don't feel there's stigma.
And when there's no shame involved, when it just, they're your guests,
Right.
And are treated as guests.
Absolutely.
Which is wonderful. So I know that one of your big endeavors now is the Regional Food Hub, because you recently had a fundraiser, I
Right.
think, the Trails of Amesbury, which, congrats on that. It sounds like it was
Trail
a
the
big
table, yeah.
success, right? Could you tell us about the Regional Food Hub and what's at work there?
Well, if you drive down, excuse me, when you drive down Route 1, you'll see the old Fraser Pontiac if you've lived here a long time, but it's the triangular building, and that is a 7,000 square foot warehouse in there. And basically through COVID, what a lot of the folks, so we have a group of food providers that we work with, partners, we call the Seacoast Food Providers, and that includes, among friends here in Newburyport, some of the meal programs. It includes some of the councils on aging, and all the folks where we can help people get food. But the Food Hub was an idea that came out of the pandemic to say, how can we make it more efficient for these folks to get food, and how can we capture more food and get it to people in need, because about 1/3 of all food goes to landfills, surplus food. We don't realize that we can't feed people, yet all tons of food goes to landfills that are wasted. So we put together a plan to raise money to build this hub that would serve ultimately 17 communities across the lower Merrimack Valley, all the way up to Haverhill and Lawrence. And we are working partly with the Greater Boston Food Bank. Most of our food comes from the Greater Boston Food Bank in Boston, and agencies have to go in and the heart of Boston, right off the turnpike, and get it. There's places renting U-Hauls. There's in Haverhill, there's a place that rents a U-Haul every week to go get the food to bring it back to folks, and it's just inefficient. We have trucks we can help with. We can provide that infrastructure, the convening of folks at our neighbors' table, and but this really is for over 25 agencies. Ultimately, will benefit as we capture food. The idea is everybody will have storage. So if we get offered a pallet of frozen fish, nobody can store it. Pat and Gill House can't store it. We couldn't store it. We have so much storage, so we just have to say no. Now we can say yes. So a great example was there was a guy delivering bacon to a grocery store up in Maine recently, and the word's getting out that we're able to capture some of this stuff already, and we're still in only phase 2 of 4-phase effort here, but he had all this bacon, and it has to be used within 2 weeks, or it has to be within 2 weeks of expiration, or they can't get rid of it, so they rejected it. He said, well, I can take it to the landfill, or I can bring it to you. So 18 cases of bacon go into our freezer that now go out to people in need instead of the landfill. It makes so much sense.
Oh, absolutely.
And yet it's, but it's getting people to sort of understand. I try to boil it down. Food goes in, food goes out. But and so we have about 8 partners right now picking up their Greater Boston Food Bank deliveries with us and not going to Boston, including Newburyport, Haverhill, and several other communities. And we hope that's going to grow. And
Well, and it's just more efficient to have it local local. And to
Well,
have
when
a
you're dealing with
regional-
volunteers
regional
and
food hub, yeah.
these folks all have to raise
Yeah.
money for the trucks and for the
Right.
and find the folks to do the
Yeah.
volunteering, and so makes it all a little more efficient, and we can feed more people. That's the goal.
You know, I'd heard that statistic before about how much food winds up in landfill, and it breaks your heart, but I'd forgotten. You know, and it just breaks your heart to think of food that could be helping people overcome food insecurity is going to waste because of inefficiencies in how it gets delivered. So, brilliant.
Well, it really is a brilliant idea, and it's we're raising. We have a capital campaign that's raising $7.8 million, and we are about 4.9, and so we are
Great.
really seeking community investment. There are folks who are around this community who have been incredibly generous. They feel very connected to it. We have folks like Sheryl who are trying to help us, and and we also have to keep the doors open, and we have our annual fundraising that pays our bills and keeps everything moving, and so it really is a community of support that we rely on. We're a staff of 14 people, which is pretty big compared to where we were, but without folks who want to help us, we would never be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, you've been talking about community a lot, and Leanne, could you tell us, what do you do as community engagement
Absolutely.
coordinator?
So I work in the Salisbury office, and I oversee the volunteer program.
And that's 500 people.
It's 500 actives.
That's a big job.
It is. It's a very big job. It is very rewarding.
I'll bet.
There's a lot of people that come through the door that are just thrilled to be there and support the community. So as a volunteer coordinator, I help get them oriented, new volunteers coming through. And I also engage the community by going out and setting up tables and dispensing information to the public. We work with the local senior centers, we work with community centers, we work with food drives, we do all kinds of friend campaigns like Cheryl's wonderful promotion. So we do a lot of different ways of raising money through people that want to do it as a group or individually, and help out a neighbor's table in that aspect. So I'm kind of the go-to person to help them get their start.
Yeah, well, wonderful. Well, I'm curious to find out, what do you hear back from people who avail themselves, the people from your guests? What do you hear back from them about what Our Neighbor's Table means to them?
Oh, so many different stories, but we just had one just the other day, that community meal that really is the heart of, I feel like, the heart of our organization. A man brought Amber, who is our meal director, meal manager, he brought a necklace that said, "Be happy," and he said, "I thought of you because when I'm not feeling good, I come here and you guys make me happy." And
that's a great story.
It's amazing, right? And she just cried, of course. And, but we hear, what would I do without you? You are, they're so grateful, and there's folks that call every day where we call ourselves a yes organization. Somebody says, I'm disabled, I can't get there, how do I do it? We figure out something for these folks. Ideas nobody goes without. And so whether it might be a guest who is just so grateful, and I wouldn't have been able to do this without you, but there's also folks who just support us, who also sort of get it. And that just, it's what keeps us going. The mission really is what's so important, and whatever the world happens, what changes,
You're always there.
The need is going to be there, and that's the focus.
What I'm impressed with about what you're saying is, first of all, the vision and how you've grown from a church basement to a regional food hub. And the way you are inclusive of your guests and your broader community of volunteers and people who combine their energies to make this happen. And it strikes me as very different from, I know technically you're a nonprofit and people would call you a charity, but it's not a charity mindset. It's more of I guess I'd call it a rights mindset. Or this is the way we all want to live. We want to live in a world where everybody gets to eat healthy, nutritious food. And it benefits all of us and makes us all feel better to collaborate together to make this vision a reality. So it's very impressive, and I'm not surprised that people have little be happy.
Well, and I would also say the volunteers. It's a community, and Leanne could probably speak to this better than me, but they enjoy being around each other and being around all of it.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree that the volunteers
it's
are
definitely a camaraderie that they come in and they feel supported by us. We feel the same towards them. It is something that we see so many new volunteers come in, all different ages. We have people that want to volunteer with their children and teach them about giving back, and that's really important to us, that we foster that and that we really try and encourage them to come in as helping with food drives or food sorting and learning about the giving back piece.
Like your mom, it sounds like, following in her legacy.
Right. She always said it was a disgrace that anyone goes hungry in this country. She really
especially
felt
when the food is
passionately
there,
about that.
and that's the magic of the Regional Food Hub, that the food is there. It's not going to wind up in landfill. It's going to wind up feeding somebody.
Well, you look around Newburyport, you look around Amesbury, they seem like these beautiful little communities, and there couldn't be these issues here, but it's everywhere. And,
it is. Yeah.
And so sometimes it takes showing people to say, here, this is really happening, that there are people who go without, and yet we have so many of us have so much. And
so let's share.
Seems like it should be easy. We would, and we're going to get there.
Well, the intentions are there, but the infrastructure isn't always there, and that's the magic of what Our Neighbor's Table can do. You have a very well developed and clearly very well thought out infrastructure to enable people to manifest their good intentions, become a reality. So bravo, well done. Back to you, Sheryl. Because I warned you ahead of time. I was going to ask you if you watched The Queen on Netflix, which was such a popular show.
Very popular show. I purposely didn't, because when you have access to the real Queen, I wanted to get her voice down, but I much prefer to listen to the real Queen Elizabeth II as opposed to another actress portray her. So from an actor's standpoint, I didn't watch The Crown, although I know it's a very popular show. But of course, like all TV shows, a little bit dramatized for the screen, so not everything's 100% accurate.
No.
But I've seen little clips here and there. I mean, they obviously very talented cast.
Well, and they had to have 3 different actresses because her reign was so long.
Yes.
Dating from having meetings with Winston Churchill in the first season to all of the hyper dramatic story of Princess Diana in the most recent season. And so, how about you, Will and Leanne? Are you the Queen watchers?
So I'm not. It's funny. My father was born in England and adopted at 6 months. He was born in 1929. We don't know who his parents were. Am I related to the Queen? I don't know. Maybe. I always said maybe. I might. Maybe this was a little scandal that was send this kid over the pond at 6 months old, and I could be a duke or something. But but he was always an Anglophile, and he just loved everything about England, and he always kept dual citizenship, and he would be first in line for this show. The Queen would have loved all of it, and so I've always had an interest, and I'm still interested in my lineage and from Southern England and who those folks are. But I'm fascinated, and unfortunately, I'm on vacation this weekend. I would love to see this, and because it really just sounds like an amazing show.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do you get the accent right? Do you just have to practice it? Like, you listen to yourself and
practice rehearsing, and also my dear friend Jane Hanna from England also co-wrote this show with me, so she also worked a lot on the accent with me as well.
Is it harder than it looks?
It is, because it's not. Everyone from England doesn't have the same dialect, and she had a very unique voice compared to other people from England. So it's not just about an English accent; it's about the Queen's speech.
Do they call that the Windsor accent?
I don't think so. But there is the Windsor wave, which you will see when you come to the show.
There's a lot of British accents, because whenever I watch Brit Bracks or Acorn, I always have to put the closed captioning on. It's like, what?
Sometimes, right? Yes.
Okay, Leanne, did you watch The Queen?
I did watch The Queen.
Okay.
I watched one season. I found it fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't really watch the rest because I got tuned into something else. But I
Okay,
do,
which queen?
Olivia.
Olivia Colman. Okay, she can do no wrong. My personal favorite was Claire Foy, who plays the queen as a young woman, because the challenges in front of her when she was just no one in her family. Her father wasn't expecting to become king. This was all, she wasn't raised
Right.
to be the queen, and so they do a really good job in season 1. If you ever want to go back and check it out,
I will.
showing the challenges in front of her to sort of adapt to that role, and she rocks it. And, she, in many challenges, as I'm sure you know, over the course of her life, but she wound up being a revered figure in England. And I remember feeling bereft when she died, because it felt like the end of an era.
Yes.
She had been alive. She met with Winston Churchill, for heaven's sake, and
Right.
every other president, because those are often parts of the narrative over the 3 seasons of the show. And she was friends with Paddington, and she had, one can do no wrong to be friends with Paddington. So she had a sense of humor, in other words.
Yes, she did.
Well, let us talk then about how people can get tickets or more information about Her Majesty, which is coming up August 4th, this Sunday,
Yes.
6 o'clock at the Cabot Theater in Beverly. How can people get tickets or more information?
And I have to say, the reason it is August 4th is that was my mother's birthday, so this
That
would
is
be
perfect, Cheryl.
I know. It's like I planned it.
Perfect.
So this Sunday would have been her 89th birthday.
Aw.
And people can get tickets online at thecabot.org. They can also call. They can also go in person to the box office. And there are group discounts available, 10 people or more. And we're going to have beautiful, amazing raffle prizes and treats and
wonderful.
all sorts of fun things. And of course, the proceeds go to help our neighbors table, which I couldn't be more thankful that it's going to
Wonderful.
them.
Well, I can't thank you all enough. It's been really fun to talk to you. I appreciate you taking the time to come visit the morning show to talk about this wonderful, amazing event, Her Majesty. So thanks all of you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
and
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Sheryl.
Yeah, it's amazing what she's doing for us, and she and I discussed her show. What goes into it is so impressive, and we're really grateful that you're picking us to
Thank you.
to benefit from that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, that's it for today, everybody. Please join us again next Thursday at 9 for the morning show. Till then, everybody, be well. Let's end with the Windsor Wave. Bye.